When I was just a boy, I read a newspaper article that my grandma had from back in 1960 something. And it had a picture, had a guy with a longbow, probably homemade, and a deer strapped to the hood of his car. And I forget what the fella's name was, but I always wanted to hunt deer with traditional archery. And when I was just a kid, my dad, he worked at a sawmill, and my mom, she worked a little gas station, and we didn't have a whole lot. We didn't go hungry, and we didn't. We always had clothes. We always had what we needed. But come down to hunting, we had the bare necessities. A lot of times I borrowed a gun. Until I was older, I got to working and bought my own gun. And Dad had some guns he gave me. But I always wanted to hunt deer with traditional archery. And I never mentioned it, not once growing up, because Dad, he always tried to do the best he could for us. And I didn't want him to feel bad because, you know, we couldn't afford things like that. He had bought me a little Browning Micro Hunter when I was about 13 years old. I think it had 35-pound draw. I'll never forget it. I shot the first deer that I ever shot with archery equipment. My uncle, he took me hunting a lot. Dad, he was always working, and he took me hunting 99% of the time. I had two uncles, three that took me hunting a lot. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't know what I know today about hunting. But way back as a kid, the thought to hunt deer with traditional archery lingered in my mind. And I just said to myself, I said, one of these days, I'm going to hunt deer with traditional archery. Well, not only did I start hunting deer with traditional archery, it became a passion of mine. My wife, she supported it. She bought me a bow off Facebook Marketplace. It was a Bear Montana. It was 64 inches long. I had no idea about anything with traditional archery. Well, I went to our Cabela's. It was about an hour ride from us. And told the guys there what I had, and they gave me some arrows. And nothing against them old boys. They didn't know nothing about no traditional archery arrows. They just gave me a box of arrows that had feathers on them and some 150 grain tips. I set out to learn how, and I feel like I've done that. I've learned all about spines, how to tune arrows, how to do it all. And you know, I feel like I'm pretty good with this old longbow now. And I want to tell you another story, and it's today reminded me of that day because it's colder than a witch's tit in a brass brawl. I had got a hold of my dad somehow got a hold of a Pearson Power Mag, and it was like 70-pound pull, very little let off. It had an overdraw on it, and I was like 14 years old. And he said when you when you can pull that back, I'll give you that bow. Well, I'd sneak and get it, and I was off school through the summer. You know, I'd sneak and get it, and I'd try. And eventually I got that thing pulled back, and I told him, I said, Dad, I said, I can pull that bow back. Can I have it now? And he said, yeah. He said, I told you. He said, I knew you'd been getting that bow and messing with it. He said, I knew it. Well, long story short, all hunting season went, and I shot at several deer, and I didn't even come close to them. But it was right after Christmas. West Virginia season runs to December 31st. It was like a day or two after Christmas. Man, it was cold. And I wanted to go hunting bad. And my uncles that I mentioned, they was all like, we ain't going, buddy. If you want to go, you go. So I took off and got way back on the mountain from our farm up in Lilly. It's in Clay, West Virginia. And, you know, we was the only people lived in that whole holler until 2012. And I got way back on that mountain, and right there stood a deer. And I just pulled it back, and it was just the coolest thing ever. And I seen that arrow disappear. Well, I hit her in the hind corner, and just luckily the arrow turned and went right into her lungs, through the guts and into the lungs. She only ran about 40 yards, but my uncle, who taught me a lot, said, mark a bush, take your pocket knife and skin a bush, you know, as close to where the animal was standing as you could. So I did that, and I'll never forget it. I ran back home, man. It was cold. And I said, hey, Uncle Smith, I said, I got one. I got it. I know I got it. And he said, boy, he said, if you didn't, he said, man, it's cold, too cold to be out there messing around with stuff. It was like 10 degrees or something. Well, we get back there. There wasn't no snow on it. It was just cold, cold. And me and my dad and my little brother, he was about 5 or 6. And I said, right there at that bush is where it was standing at. I said, see, I skinned the bush with my knife. And we walked up there and we looked all around. And there wasn't no blood, wasn't no nothing. And my uncle, he talked real low. He said, looked up and he said, well, by God, right there she is. And that was the first deer that I ever killed with archery equipment. I'm gonna find a picture of it and attach it to this video. But thanks for listening to my story, guys. Y'all have a good evening.